The MacArthur River Uranium Mine, 600 kilometers north of Saskatoon by air, half a kilometer underground. There's more high-grade uranium here than anywhere else in the world. Giant pockets of the stuff. Uranium so potent that miners aren't allowed near it. 1 year ago, Sunday morning, April 6th, miner Bill Good is starting the day shift.
We got on shift, and night shift was saying something. The back was buckling in Bay 12 and making water.
Cameco Corporation's flagship mine had sprung a leak. A section of ceiling collapsed in the upper part of the mine. Water from the surrounding sandstone was pouring in and flooding the lower levels.
You know, the water was flowing in there pretty fast, and we wanted to contain it.
The mine was evacuated. For the next 48 hours, emergency crews sloshed around in radioactive water, unprotected, with sandbags and extra pumps.
All I was thinking was, let's get these pumps in here, like the rest of the guys that were working with us. Let's get these pumps out in here and get out of here, you know, get this water under control.
It was touch and go, but they got the water under control. Saved the world's richest uranium mine. But at what cost? 1 year later, and Cameco is still facing questions about what it did in those first 48 hours. Cameco did its own review of what happened. At a public hearing, the company explained what went wrong at McArthur River to its federal regulator, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. Cameco admitted that a number of preventable factors led to the accident, including a communication breakdown between mine engineers and geologists, no formal way to assess risk. The emergency water plan was inadequate. An emergency, yes, but the company says it didn't recklessly endanger workers who went underground in the first 48 hours.
They will be held accountable, and they will have to explain their situation.
Kevin Sissons of the Nuclear Safety Commission says the regulator is still thinking over the company's explanation. There are sore points. Bad enough that Cameco had to admit at the hearing that it didn't have enough of these pumps. The Safety Commission had warned the company months before the flood that it didn't have the capacity for just such an emergency.
We brought to the licensee's attention. It was on their agenda to address.
The company had planned to add more pumps, but didn't get to it in time. But it wasn't just water flooding the mine. It was water laced with radon gas. It's a dangerous mix at the best of times.
Their safety people, their management.
Ernie Becker from Saskatchewan Labour wrote the book on how uranium miners are exposed to radiation.
Or you can be exposed to radon coming out, usually from the water which has passed through the ore body, and then you breathing in the radon and the radon progeny.
Scientists can measure the radiation in the radon gas.
This is a radon progeny monitor.
They can say how much is there, but they can't say how much causes cancer.
When you say pure chance, what do you mean by that?
Two people that can be exposed to the same radiation exposures, one might never have any symptoms, the other one might. It's just pure chance.
Chance. Bill Good thinks about this a lot these days. He went down on a 6-man crew to install the emergency pumps that Sunday. None of the miners wore respirators.
After everything was said and done, then we started thinking, I wonder if that was a good thing we did.
These doubts were made worse by what was happening with the radiation warning devices in the mine. Radiation technicians rely on machines called prisms to know when to test for radon. The prisms have sensors and work like traffic lights. For miners like Bill Good, red is supposed to mean get out.
But during that time, while we were putting the pumps in, we'd look over at the prism and it would turn red. And then the radiation technician would go over there and turn it off and on. And it wouldn't give us a red signal for 10 minutes.
There may be a very good reason for it. I just don't know.
Cameco Chief Operating Officer Terry Rogers. He says the company was not going to sit back and watch the mine flood.
It was not an option to do nothing.
Workers sealed off the flooded tunnel. Cameco knew the radon levels in the mine were unstable. They decided the miners would be safer under the conditions without respirators. Their emergency plan let them do that. Expose workers to more radiation.
The agreed to alternative in the contingency plan was to measure the radiation and allow the workers to pass through there without respiratory protection for a very short period of time.
Vanier College in Montreal.
These are the richest uranium mines in the entire world.
Gordon Edwards is a math professor here. He's president of the Canadian Coalition for Nuclear Responsibility.
When the company suspends its code of practice for radiation protection, they're basically saying the workers are expendable, that the mine comes first. And so they're putting profits ahead of people.
Edwards read the Cameco reports on the flood. He's astonished workers went underground without respirators.
But when that water floods into the mine, the radon, which is dissolved in the water under pressure, comes out like effervescence. It comes out like when you open a bottle of soda pop and all the bubbles come up. All that radon gets released. So we're talking about extraordinarily high levels of radon. And these workers were down there without respirators? This is incredible.
And then the bombshell from this man, Cameco Mining Vice President Martin Quick. He spoke at the Nuclear Safety Commission public hearing in Ottawa last November. Quick was explaining the company's priorities during the early days of the flood.
During the initial few hours and maybe the first 3 days, I must admit, our chief aim was to save the mine. It wasn't at any cost, but when you're in an emergency situation, we perhaps didn't have the radiation protection measures in place that we should have, but there was a heck of a lot of water coming in, and the idea was to control it.
Terry Rogers says don't read too much into it.
Well, I don't argue that that was the chief aim, but we do our chief aims safely. And I think it's implicit, it's explicit, it's expected.
The statement certainly surprised the regulator.
No, we weren't looking for or wanting to hear that type of frank statement. What we'll turn on here is our sampling device here.
It also unsettled workers who were underground during the flood. Investigators went over how Cameco monitored exposures.
Some very extreme events occurring there. There's a lot of activity going on, and that's why we did our own independent evaluation on site to verify the records, interview employees, interview the radiation technicians, check their databases and their field notes to see if we were going to reach the same conclusions.
It accepts the company's numbers, but the Nuclear Safety Commission hasn't made up its mind whether Cameco acted responsibly.
We are still evaluating that. Our investigation or evaluation of the situation is not complete.
The regulator's final report is due next month. The findings will play an important role in Cameco's attempt to relicense the mine later this summer. Cameco says that the highest doses it knows of from the flood are still well below workers' allowable limits.
I think that the assessment of the impact on employees' health, if radiation is your main concern, we know the maximum doses. The maximum dose is far below the conservative limit that we set for our workers. Everybody is safe from a radiation exposure perspective.
Under federal law, exposure to radiation is measured in millisieverts. 1 year maximum, 50 millisieverts. 5 year maximum, 100 millisieverts. McArthur River flood maximum exposure, 12.69 millisieverts. But Gordon Edwards says this misses the point.
Many workers have been led to believe that as long as the radon exposures are below a certain level, a certain regulatory permissible level, that it's harmless. And this is simply untrue.
Edwards says Cameco and the Nuclear Safety Commission are both downplaying the dangers.
I don't believe that either the regulator or the company really knows what the exposure levels truly were, especially for the workers in those first 2 days. And we're talking about life-threatening exposures, because every exposure to radon is acknowledged to be potentially life-threatening. We're not talking here about just numbers on a sheet of paper. We're talking about mortality.
He says the Nuclear Safety Commission shares responsibility for what happened at McArthur River.
By 8 months before the actual accident, there were clear indications that there could be just such an event as this, and that precautions were being taken, but they were inadequate. Communications were inadequate. Expertise was inadequate. Planning was inadequate. Wow. I mean, how many inadequacies does one have to have before one has incompetence?
Bill Good still leaves his home near Big River to catch a plane north to mine uranium. He says no one from Cameco ever asked him about what happened in those 48 hours.
We saved their mine for him, you know, their flagship. And after all said and done, that was it. The only thing we really got out of them was a T-shirt saying I got pumped at McArthur River. I don't have it with me. I threw it away.
For The National, I'm Dan Zakreski.